All right, Chaz, let's get right to it. Baseball at its best, I think, is when big moments and big crowds come together to create the big energy you felt at Great American Ballpark on Saturday night. The crescendo came in the seventh inning. Tie game, 2 outs, bases loaded, full count, Ellie De La Cruz, all that. 40,000 at Great American Ballpark understood that moment. They got it. Good for Reds fans that they got it. Standing and chanting Ellie's name. And as I'm watching that from the press box, I couldn't help but wonder if I might be watching more and more of those types of moments the next 2 months of the season. On one hand, this team just lost a series to the Nationals. That happened. That wasn't good. On the other hand, they just swept the Rays and had won 4 straight. But to me, it felt like the big energy at Great American Ballpark might be real and that there might be more of it in August, in September. So I ask you, is that just emotion? Is that just me being emotional? Or you got some stuff on the pages inside Charlie's notebook to back that up? What do you say?
Well, we're at the point, too, where there's trade deadline ramifications. And I feel like the Reds are basically there. I think they're in a good spot. I think there's enough that you can realistically see and point to from an identity, from a talent, from a situational approach towards guys just getting better. I think there's enough there to, one, you can point the Reds towards being buyers. I feel pretty strongly about that right now. And two, you can, because you're feeling that way in the first place, point to a team that's squarely both standings wise and squarely kind of emotionally and talent wise right where they should be in the wild card race.
Right where they should be. You say this is where they should be at this point in the season based on what's happened.
Well, what I'm saying, it's not a fluke. I don't think the Reds are playing above their sales or whatever that expression is. It's not like this is some magical run, and no disrespect to this at all. But like the Reds had in the summer of 2023, that kind of propelled them from a win-loss cushion for the rest of the season. No, what stood out to me about the Rays series was, yes, there was the dramatic Ellie moment, but it wasn't this crazy series where the Reds did all these unbelievable things. No, they showed up, they played baseball, and they won. And it's starting to just get more familiar. Again, it feels like they're right where they should be, being the type of team that they're good enough to be.
Starting to feel more familiar, I think, is a good description of the way they won some of those games at Great American Ballpark. Coming up on the show this week, as we say welcome into Power Stacks, proud members of the Growler Podcast Network. Coming up, the trade deadline and the Dodgers. You mentioned this. The trade deadline and the Dodgers, a key week at Great American Ballpark full of big names and big decisions for the Reds front office. Also, they say that good teams sometimes take on the personality of the manager. Do the Reds at this point reflect Terry Francona? Are we there yet? And could it make a difference the rest of the way? And let's take it from the top, as in TJ Friedl and Matt McLain, Chris Valaika on the lineup, and the importance of 1-2 in the Reds lineup. But first in the leadoff spot, Chaz, when we were, first and second grade, that sounds about right. You're given an assignment. They hand you maybe a short story or a short paragraph, and they say, read this paragraph and tell me what the main idea is. You kind of just gave me a little bit of it, but if you look at the Rays series as a whole, as that story, what was the main idea for the Reds coming out of a sweep of Tampa at Great American Ballpark?
I'll start with what the Reds were during the first half of July, where they did have that stretch against the Red Sox, the Phillies, the Marlins, the Rockies. And we talked about this at the time. It didn't feel like the Reds were playing bad. It's just kind of, there was nothing propelling them absolutely through the finish line. And I made the case a few times here that what the Reds really needed was the starting rotation to start absolutely carrying the Reds to more wins. That's the strength of the team. And I think I've used this metaphor before, so I'm sorry, but just like the Bengals need Burrow to chase to work, the Reds need their strength of their team, what they do best, what they hang their hat on, what they carry their lunch pail full of. They need that rotation to do just that. And you had, start with Nick Lodolo in Washington to start this winning streak. A grindy, efficient, aggressive, competitive game from Nick Martinez, even though it was just 5 innings on Friday. Andrew Abbott, pure all-star stuff on Saturday. And then Brady Singer, he's not as good as he was on Sunday, but he's nowhere near as struggling as he was at different points this season. Brady Singer is a solid big league starter. So what you saw was this starting pitching staff leading the Reds to wins, and that's what this team was supposed to be in the first place.
Talking about the starting rotation, and tip of the cap to Rufus for this, because we were talking about this. Outside of the injuries, the multiple stints on the injured list to Hunter Greene this season, and man, if the Reds can get Hunter Greene back on track and joining this party with the right role to play, then we have a whole different conversation. Anyway, not that right now, but looking at the Reds rotation, outside of Greene being injured and Andrew Abbott's late start to the season, the Reds rotation, they've made every start. Brady Singer, Nick Martinez, Nick Lodolo. That's one of those things that not only did we think it might be the strength of the team, but they've been healthy. They've managed themselves well between starts, and that's been so key. The Reds lost a lot of their depth. They weren't currently using a lot of it, but they lost a lot of their depth in the Reds rotation. But the guys that started the season, for the most part, have carried the mail, or whatever you want to say, made all those starts and been really successful doing it.
And that was a part of it too. Like, not to say that Brady Singer was a reflection of the Reds' organizational philosophy, but like, they got Brady Singer, and the thing they prioritized the most was that they thought he had a good chance to post. Nick Martinez, they thought he had a very good chance to post. Andrew Abbott, the priority and emphasis and tangible changes that we were talking about in May. I remember I did a big story on it in May, and here he is in late July saying the exact same things about why he's more confident about what he's going to be able to do in August and September this season. Lodolo, very, very similar because of the different training program he can do, because he's not just trying to heal between starts. So it's all that work that for Lodolo and Abbott's a part of getting older. For Martinez and Singer, it's a part of why they're here. Chase Burns, his innings are about to get managed a lot more carefully, but he has absolutely exceeded my expectations just with the fact that he's taking the ball every 5 days. So again, all that is what the Reds wanted this rotation to be.
Yeah. Bottom line is, ending the first series of what is the longest homestand of the season, of what is the point in the season where this week carries you into the trade deadline and then bridges from July into the month of August. The Reds, start this week against the Dodgers, 6 games over 500 with some momentum, with some good vibes. Rotation was a big part of that, and we'll do more on pitching as we move along in today's show. Right now, though, Tito's take, and I almost did a left turn, and we tried to make something of Tito's take by making sure we're all liquidated for those hot days at the ballpark.
That's right.
You want to stay liquidated. And if you saw post-game on Sunday, go ahead.
My vocabulary, I wrote in my story today that Andrew Abbott's at his best when he's behooving hitters, and I meant bewildering hitters. So I made my bad. Sorry, Charlie, chalkboard readers. That's been updated and corrected from the original version.
We all have them. You had behoove, and Tito had liquidated post-game on Sunday, but that's good. But anyway, we get into Tito, and we talk going all the way back to spring training. We've talked about the Tito effect, the Francona effect. As soon as the Reds made this hire, of this Hall of Fame manager to be, we talked about the impact or the effect it might have on this team. So far, for most of this season, it feels like baby steps. It's kind of fits and starts. It's good, positive moments for this team, but mostly 500 baseball with Terry Francona in the manager's seat. But I'm thinking about this question, and I bring up this question: could we be moving into the first real phase of the season where the manager and what the manager has been saying and doing all season matters most? In other words, has Terry Francona been inching this team along towards what he wants it to be, and the team in return accepting that and taking that and moving? And is it coming together now at the end of July where maybe both sides kind of get it and feel it a little more, and this becomes more of an effect, the real first time we might see the Tito effect. Does that make any sense at all, what I just said?
It's funny, and this is true. And here I'm leaning a little too far into the bit, and for that I apologize. But Paul Dander and I have had lots of conversations on the Growler over the years about how on a good team, all the stories you wrote in August and September just come back around the second half of the season, just with a little more
It's a good point.
emphasis. And we've literally done that. We've literally written a million of those stories, and Paul and I have had those conversations in podcast form as well. And I think that's what you're seeing here. It's all these points of like the identity stuff too. I've kept stressing just how much of an identity shift and a different approach this team has, or the coaching staff has been asking this team to take compared to what it was last season, kind of in every area except pitching. It's been a big undertaking, and there were mistakes early on, and I think that was a part of the product of the Reds beating themselves as much as they did in April and May. And I think that's changed. I think that's different. It's another example of the Reds maturing. I think maturity is a big part of that as well. A lot of these guys just feel like older baseball players, like even Inoue Marte, who's really young, just feels older this year. And there's more polish and understanding of what he's trying to do. And you're seeing that add up again to a team that's playing quality and clean baseball.
Here's a question I would ask as we talk about, everybody's thrown out the statistic about Francona teams being better in the second half. New Hall of Famer Tom Hamilton was one of the first to point that out to you earlier in the season. Everyone's kind of hanging their hat on that. And hopefully it's true from a Reds standpoint. If you want that to happen, I hope it plays out. We don't know yet, but I wonder if we were to ask people right now in Cleveland or Boston, guys that were around that team or those teams around Francona, watched how they played, maybe watched him even in his first season in those two stops, would they look at the Reds and say, oh, yeah, I see it. I see that team kind of looks like a Tito team now, kind of looks like a Francona team right now. I wonder how they would answer that question, if they would see it or if they would say it hasn't happened yet, but maybe I could see it kind of starting. Where would we be in the timeline, I wonder?
Well, that's evolved over time too, because a Francona team in Boston was David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez
Right.
and all these high ceiling crazy aces. It's you coach the team you have. I think that is something developed and ingrained in Cleveland, and there are more parallels. Look at even something as simple as bringing Chris Valaika over to run the hitting side. Like parallels also organizationally, like when Tito got the job, it was very clear that Santiago Espinal was going to play a lot more than people expected this year because of kind of what we saw from Tito in Cleveland. Like there are parallels, there are similarities in terms of the overall team identity. I'd say that's also reflected in front office decision-making similarities that you see in how these rosters are assembled and styles and skill sets and archetypes that are followed. But it is a team that's more like the team that Francona said he wanted the Reds to be back in last October when he took the job.
And I agree with you that each team is different, and a good manager and a good staff are going to get the most out of what they have and how that team is put together. But just from the attitude and what it feels like when you come to the ballpark every day and what's expected and what it feels like in the dugout, and Elly De La Cruz grabbing the glasses off of his manager's face during a mound visit in a game when the Reds are losing. Some of those things play into that.
I'll say this because like something I do know that's always been very, very, very important to Franco, going all the way back to Boston, is one, veteran coaches that you empower and kind of have perspective. And two is, like Boston had Dave Roberts, like Alex Cora was that guy. Like Francona and I know this, has always really, really believed in the power of those types of just quality people, even if they're not your most prominent players, just having those types of quality people who really know how to see the game. And, I don't know if Nick Martinez or Austin Hayes or Jose Trevino is going to manage for 10 seasons in the big leagues. But they're those types of people. Like, again, not to call them Dave Roberts and Alex Cora, because again, those have been very successful managers. Maybe they could be. Like the Reds have a lot of those types of people. And so, does Tito get credit for that? Of course, you give the players credit for that. But having those types of players and those types of coaches, yes, it's important to Tito, and you're also seeing the impact of that.
His managing tree is already kind of cool. Kevin Cash, Dave Roberts, Alex Cora, what you just said. That's kind of fun to watch. But talking about guys in the Reds clubhouse, and I think, we both talk to players on a regular basis, and you kind of come to know what type of question to take to a certain player or what type of answer you might expect. Sometimes you get surprised, but I think that the good barometers for this team right now in terms of a voice speaking for the group, Emilio Pagan, Nick Martinez come to mind. Those two, there are others, but those two do come to mind. And thinking about Martinez post game during the Rays series, after the Reds won that game, you guys had a moment in the post-game news conference room when Martinez was there, when Francona was there, and each one kind of described how they feel about the attitude and the energy and what the other brings to a game or the dugout. Francona talked about the energy that Martinez always brings to the dugout, how he pitches, how he competes, how he's always ready to compete. And then Nick Martinez is asked about Francona. And his answer to the question about playing for Terry Francona and kind of where that team identity under Francona stands right now is where we want to go next. Here's Martinez on that.
I think everyone has bought into Tito's persona and winning. Going out there every game and trying to win the game in front of us, and we're starting to see that, and all those hard work and obviously all the cliches, but we want to make a push. Expectation to win, man. I mean, he wants to win. He obviously 2,000 wins and counting, and this is what he expects, man. That's why he plays to win, and so do we.
So do we. I like that. And the expectation, and going back to what Francona always says, this game in front of me, this game today. That's why on Sunday you saw Santillan and Pagan for a third consecutive day. I'm all in to win the game that we have the opportunity to win right now, and we worry about tomorrow when tomorrow gets here. I think the team is starting to feel more of what Francona has said all season long.
And this is taking this a completely different direction, but something I really respect about Francona, should Will Benson be playing more? He's scorching the ball. That's a conversation that we don't have in the rundown. Like, Francona's decided that he has Jake Fraley and some other guys ahead of Will Benson, so Will Benson's not playing. Terry Francona benched Jeimer Candelario in April. Terry Francona, Nick Martinez has come to Terry Francona and said, "I think I can help our bullpen tonight in between starts. Let me do it." And Tito has said no. You're seeing a lot of that. And I really, I'm trying to think of some more examples. There have definitely been some more examples of that where his authority, I think, has created, has been a part of the mix and a part of the stew as well. And that's, again, not something he'll go out publicly and like talk about in a press conference or anything like that. Because he doesn't talk about himself that way, but it is something you've truly seen and kind of felt when you look around and see how he's deploying this team.
Nick Martinez has also made that request, and Francona has said yes, but he's also
that's true.
He's also said no, but I think he appreciates the players like Martinez or like Pagan and Santillan, who always show up and say, "I'm good. I can do it today. Whatever you need, I'll take the ball. Yeah, yes, I'm fine." Certainly, most managers appreciate that. But when someone is presented something, I take it even beyond, a player. Francona implicitly trusts those staff members you talked about. Mm-hmm. When Colin Cowgill came and said, "I think we should look at Noelvi Marte in the outfield," he said, "Go ahead. Let's take a look." And when he came and said, "Marte, I've been working with him," and Marte says, "I'm good," that was all it took. And we've only seen it once, but would you agree that that's another one of the Francona things, that someone like Colin Cowgill came and presented something mid-season like that some people might say, "Hey, man, let's just wait till the offseason. Let's wait and try that in spring training." And Francona had that amount of trust to stick him out there and make it happen.
The part that stands out the most to me, and I was just about to mention that myself, was just the timing of it. One workout and he's in because he trusted Colin Cowgill. Like, that's it right there. And then on the the tough decision-making front, it is pulling Wilbe Marte for defense, because there are times where Francona's been honest about this. You want to keep him in there to build that confidence and reward him for the work he's been doing. But then there are times you just pull him. And that's a big difference from last year, even when Wilbe Marte was struggling terribly. He wasn't getting pulled and or playing the long game. What does the best version of this team look like? And that's all valid. But this is all a tangible example of, Francona saying, what can I win tonight? What can I do to win tonight? And he's doing those things, even if it's maybe a more unpopular decision. And that quality, again, is definitely impressive.
Time now for the Reds' milestone moment of the week. And I'm going to milk this a little bit because I think there are multiple moments. First, we have to make a trip to Louisville for the Bats. AAA there, Sal Stewart. If we had Paul Daner Jr. on right now, he could hearken back to his days at the ballpark in Chattanooga. He's no longer in Chattanooga. And Sal Stewart, although he had a little bit of a bumpy few games at times, just had a 4-for-4 night with 2 home runs. Chaz, did that hit your radar and register positively for young Sal Stewart?
I was the one who put this in the rundown. I wanted to make sure it was mentioned. Yes, I'm
you
continuing
want to get credit
to
for that, for the rundown?
I'm just saying I want to make sure I continue to feed the narrative, to fuel the narrative.
Feed the
Sal
narrative
Stewart's a player.
On Sal Stewart. He's a player. Also, Hector Rodriguez.
People should be talking about more.
Yes.
Like Sal's above Hector, but
right.
Hector could be here maybe this season. Like that's
since he got there, his overall work has been quite impressive. And again, Francona said, if you've watched previously, he said, look, they're a part of who we would like to be. Certainly looking at the future, whenever the future might be. We don't know. Also in the milestone, we have to say the Cobra. Dave Parker to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Looking at this, and we've looked at it a number of different ways. You can have this conversation. All I want to do is say that Dave Parker knew before he passed that he got the call from Cooperstown that his son was going to deliver that speech, the speech that he planned and that he wanted to give. So tip of the cap, a milestone, another Cincinnati kid, Cincinnati product, Cincinnati proud was Dave Parker to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Congratulations to him and the entire Parker family. And this milestone moment from the Reds, as it is every week, is brought to you by Glenville Ave, our friends at Glenville Ave, the baby blanket designed by parents who wanted something better. I've been thinking about this, Chaz, and I keep asking, at some point you're going to need gifts, but just looking at the website for Glenville Ave, and the website is glenvilleavellc.com. That's where milestones meet memories. Go take a look at the video. Think about your kids, your friends' kids, your grandkids, and think about how this would help. The blankets are softer, safer, larger than standard
blankets. Do they
blankets.
grow with the child?
You better believe they grow with your child and grow with those memories that are made. They are friends of the podcast, here to support us, so we would ask that you support them. Go to the website, glenvilleavellc.com. Use the promo code STACKS. You get 10% off your first order. And celebrate with us and celebrate those in the Power Stacks community who support us. We ask you to support them, and we thank Glenville Ave. Time now for Charlie's Notebook, and let's do some stuff on the lineup, Charlie. The Notebook is about the lineup, a Reds lineup that in the Rays series had some different types of games, a couple of quiet stretches during those games that felt a little bit dangerous if you think you're going to win the game. They came through and put up some runs in those games. Where would you say the lineup is right now? Is it settled? Are there still places that you look that you don't know what the best option is, what to do, or what Francona might do with the lineup?
Well, unless they get a middle-of-the-order bat at the deadline, like a true presence, I think the structure's set. I don't see a shakeup happening there down the stretch this season. I think there's some commitment to where this is right now, again, unless there is that influx that would have a ripple effect around the roster. The thing as a whole, and the next step for the lineup to me as well, are two guys not you and me, but just in general, I feel like haven't been discussed enough because, like, obviously Ellie's getting his due, big stretch by Hayes all season. Marte and Fraley and what they've done is key. The lineup as a whole, and I should have said this earlier, the depth 1 through 9 is the best it's been, and you're seeing real tangible moments where, the bottom half of the lineup is not just pulling its weight, it's like pulling the weight in a lot of times this season. So that's good. Friedl and McLain feels like have been under-discussed a bit. Friedl's been scuffling now since the middle of June. McLain, like, he'll have a good week, but he won't sustain that. He's a guy who has to take that next step. That's certainly in there because he's shown it, but it just hasn't happened yet. And we're 4 months into the season. So, I went to Chris Valaika, very interested to talk about Friedl and McLain both and kind of what the next step is for both of them individually. A bit of a grind for Friedl. What are you seeing with him and working on to maybe kind of get out of this?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple things. Just, the everyday grind of, playing every day like he has, and, maybe some mid-season fatigue setting in. Overall, I think how he started the year, I think he's having an all-star caliber year. But, I think some of the pressure that goes along with that, maybe not, feeling the respect that, I think all of us think he deserves, might have led to some of the, I don't want to say the try hard, but like putting extra pressure on himself. But I think overall of late, it's been a conversation with him throughout the year that, more on the pitch selection or how he's being pitched, teams are starting to attack him more away. You see him starting to get hit by more pitches, or the cutters coming in. It's because they're opening him up on the outer third of the plate and then trying to finish him late. So I think the biggest thing is him just getting back to hitting balls low and hard the other way, opening up that side of the field again. And then, we're just going to keep playing the cat and mouse game that he's going to have to take his hits over there for, 2 weeks. And then they're going to try to pitch him back in. And that's when the damage comes. And we do some damage for 2 weeks. And then we go back with hitting the other side of the field. So it's just going to be that constant game, I think, with him. And, just of late, we're seeing a lot of the ground balls, the pull side, the higher fly balls to the off side that, it's just more so the pitch selection and taking what the other team's giving him.
McLain has put like a good week together, maybe he hasn't sustained it further than that, but when he has like a good week, what are the things that's kind of unlocked that for him?
He's been working all year. I think biggest things with Matty is, again, just like TJ, I think some of the pitch selection and, letting the at-bat come to him, not trying to force a result. That always happens, younger guys in their careers, or, guys start feeling good that they feel like they can do more and want to swing more, that, we see some at-bats out of him where, he's on a good run that, or they'll follow a pitcher out of the at-bat, or he'll get antsy in the box trying to do more than, they're trying to walk you in this situation, or they don't want to get into you in this situation. These are at-bats where, you can maybe be a little bit more selective and take your walk, take what they're getting you, rather than trying to drive the guy in or again, go back to force contact when you don't necessarily need to.
With Friedl, you heard Chris talk about some of that specific cat and mouse down not the weeds, because this is the important stuff. But then with each of them, there's also that just purely intangible element that I think is really important and notable and fascinating. And, an interesting place for, a hitting coach to take that direction, because it is the art and the science. And with McLain and TJ, there might be a little bit extra of that art in terms of the next step for them hitting their stride.
How do you think an opposition views the Reds lineup right now?
I have a great not a great answer, but I
would love to hear your answer.
That's a fascinating question.
Okay.
So,
okay.
You know what the Rays did? They brought in their lefty to face Ellie for that pocket of the lineup, as opposed to bringing in their lefty to face TJ. I think there's less game planning around TJ than there was. Like in June, we talked about this every show. Here's another left-handed opener. Here's another team throwing out its playbook to stack. I think McLain overall trending up while not being there, plus a tough stretch for TJ, has shifted the spotlight down the lineup to the middle pocket. That includes Ellie and Hayes, especially, I guess, if they're bringing in a lefty, but you get the point I'm making. Yeah. That pocket of the lineup, there's more of a spotlight on than the TJ McLain pocket of the lineup. And then the depth too. The depth, while you don't see it in the cat and mouse game, that gets respect and gets credit. What Fraley and Marte have been doing out of the 8 and 9 spots.
Before we move on, one big question, not on the rundown, by the way, so brace yourself. But I know I can throw you curveballs. You can hit the curve, Chaz. I know you've proven that over time. You can hit the curve. Is there anything more to what we know or expect or think about Hunter Greene than what we've been told that Terry Francona says, and this was the quote from a few days ago, in laying out the timeline, which they've stayed away from a timeline, but in laying out the plan for where Greene would pitch on his rehab and how it starts, Francona just said simply, we just want him to be okay. As the Reds hit the deadline, how much of a question mark is Hunter Greene, even in their thinking about everything, about what this team might look like in August and September?
The answer to this question isn't Hunter Greene. The answer to this question is Nick Martinez. So Hunter Greene, let's start with Hunter. Hunter Greene, let's go through every box. Let's go through every step, rehab. Yada, you get the point.
Right.
With everything, he was perfect last time, and he even returned last time, and so there's still that bit of hesitation. And we spoke about this last show. I asked Brad Metter, what can you expect? Look at 23. Greene returned and was himself, and Brad said we expect Hunter to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. And end quote. Because then I'll say, when Hunter Greene's ready, he's going to pitch, and there's no way to work around that. And in that kind of way, you are on Hunter's schedule a bit because of the upside and the reputation that he has in your rotation. But there still is going to be that uncertainty. That's where Nick Martinez comes in, because if Hunter progresses what am I trying to say? If Hunter needs a bit more time, if this goes in a direction no one wants it to go, well, you've got Nick Martinez. If Hunter's ready, say if Hunter turns out is way ahead of schedule and he's ready to go in 2 weeks, well, then I think Martinez goes to the bullpen and becomes a bulk guy. You can piggyback off Birds. You can use in different pockets for high leverage. He can be an option to take off Santillan and Pagan in the 8th and the 9th because of how much faith there is. So what do you expect from Hunter? Who knows? They're expecting him to be Hunter. They're planning for him to be Hunter. But because of just the natural uncertainty that, again, 2023 shows, the answer to the question is Nick Martinez, because he's kind of the insurance plan, both in the case that Hunter is Hunter and in the case that Hunter's not Hunter. That makes Nick Martinez more valuable than he's ever been. That, to me, makes Nick Martinez untradeable heading into the deadline, because the pitching plans fall apart if you don't have Martinez because of the uncertainty that there is with guys like Hunter.
I love that. And you also still think the Reds need another Nick Martinez?
I think they need two, because, we went over this. Pitching, rotation depth crumbling is what can kill a season. And I'm terrified of that if I'm the Reds. So Detmers, who I know isn't as stretched out, or Soroka, or Littell, or Lorenzen when he comes back from the IL, get that, and then see if you can get one of the big impact bats. Is Yandy Diaz available now, who we saw this week? I think first base is more of a possibility than maybe I was giving it credit for, too. Steer would just move to the outfield. Steer would still be an everyday player. But when you look at, again, just how Espinal's been playing there, adding into that mix is valuable. If you can't get that middle of the order bat, at least just get a backup first baseman. Heck, get it like a Carlos Santana, get a Josh Bell, a guy who you could use, a guy who could be a bench bat, a guy who could do a couple of different things and provide some power upside. If I'm playing it cautious, then a second Martinez and a backup first baseman are the moves I'd make.
It's going to be a fun week. Going to be interesting. Going to be exciting, especially if the Reds continue to play well as all of the trade deadline stuff plays itself out in the coming days. Don't forget the X page is @PowerStacksPod, @PowerStacksPod. The email, thoughts, suggestions, feedback. If you have a business or know of a business who would like to partner with us and be a part of this community and what we've established and continue to do and grow, the email is powerstackspod@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Finishing up now with what's ahead, because here it is. I said it in the tease. It's deadline week and the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers are right about 500 their last 10 games. They just got swept by Milwaukee. They also lost a series in Boston. when you look at what's happening right now with that team or just glance at them on paper, all the names are still the names, but where are the defending world champs right now as they hit Great American Ballpark?
Well, they're not at their best. Mookie Betts has been struggling. Looking kind of at the middle third of the lineup, your Conforto, Teoscar. I think Teoscar's been playing better, but guys like that hasn't been as scary as maybe it was supposed to be. One of the best lineups of all time. When you look at how the middle of the lineup hasn't quite picked up that weight, it has been more top heavy, but Mookie at the top hasn't been. It's a lot going on there. But still, the idea of Dodgers at deadline week for the Reds being where they are right now, that's a beautiful little metaphor. Because what have we discussed? Are you chasing World Series odds or make the playoff odds? What are you chasing? The Dodgers representing that coming into the building on the exact same day or the exact same couple of days, you have to make those decisions. That's a beautiful thing. So
I like it.
That's fun.
I like it. Yeah, and it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but they're expecting big crowds at the ballpark. You're going to get to see Ohtani pitch in this series if things hold as scheduled and planned right now. It's going to be fun. And again, for the Reds to hit this series with 4 straight wins, we've seen them in this similar situations in the season take a step back. Is this the time they take a step forward? Because the Dodgers, whatever they're doing recently, playing well, winning against the Dodgers at this time of year would represent a really good week for the Reds. So that's what's out there. What are you going to chase this week at the ballpark, Chaz? What story as you hit the Dodgers series is page 1 in the notebook right now? I know you write things down ahead of time to remind yourself.
I haven't. No, my notebook's over there, so I won't grab it. But that idea of where the Reds kind of are when you look up a level is an interesting idea, and kind of how the players view that, because they're saying, we want to buy at the deadline. But what are they've taken the next step, but then what's the next step for this team? That combined with the idea of 2023, and the Reds actually played the Dodgers during deadline week in 2023 as well. I remember I flew out to LA on for that series. It was a multi-series road trip, and like the whole front office actually was on my flight to LA because it was like that time of year. All the big wigs in the front office. So I joked to them, thanks for not making a trade as we're in the air here, because I knew they wouldn't, because we're all on the same flight. And then that year they just got Sam Moll. Is there any difference this year? And maybe are there any takeaways from 23 that stick in the minds of the Reds front office entering now? Those are 2 ideas on my mind.
All right. I like that. Emilio Pagan said on Sunday, just talking about where the Reds are right now, he said, look, I feel like this has been building for a few years, building towards this point, indicating that this does feel different, or that this is a different crossroads for the Reds in terms of what they would like to be, who they would like to be. And it's exciting for this week at Great American Ballpark. Heard from some folks at the pre and post game set again. They said, hey, love Power Stacks. I said what I tell you all the time and what you always say: share with a friend, pass the word. After you listen to a great show, Chaz, send that link to a couple of people and say, hey, have you heard these guys? This is good. Reds are hot. Reds are a good topic. Check out this show. So we appreciate that. We also appreciate producer Kent getting it done. As always, you can watch us on YouTube or anywhere you find your podcasts, and you can be guaranteed, you better believe, we'll be back in full force with trade deadline news, Reds Dodgers post-series news next time we check in.
Can we call our post-trade deadline show the trade deadline after party?
Ooh, I actually like that. I bet there's some cool music producer Kent could come up with for the after party. So yeah, I like that. I'm going to make a note of that so we don't forget that. And we'll do that next time. Have a great week. Thanks for checking out Power Stacks. We'll see you next time.